Hello and welcome to Top of the Props, the weekly football betting show that focuses on the markets away from the main market. So think goal kicks, throws, fouls, shots, tackles, etc. Today, as always, I'm joined by Scott Thornton. Scott, how you doing?
Very good, very good. We had a nice Champions League pod in the week, so let's hope that continues now. And we've got a couple of winners here in the weekend. There's some big games in Europe. We're focusing on Europe for a change.
Yes, two massive games, and just touching on the Champions League pod we did, you were on some really good form, aren't you, on the podcast show?
Yeah, eight Champions League bets in a row winning. So hopefully we'll finish out with a couple of winners in the final there. But we need to bring some good form to the top of the props now, and I think that's this week. There's a couple of real good games and some nice prices here.
Yeah, it's sod's law, isn't it? Because you're absolutely flying on the podcast and on the over on site on your props articles. Then we start something like this, and yeah, we've not been able to get a winner for the last couple of pods. But anyway, it happens. We are, like you said, focusing on just two games today, both in Europe, two big games. But we do have three different bets to get stuck into across those two games. So without further ado, let's get stuck into it. Barcelona versus Real Madrid, first one, El Clasico. These two recently met in the Copa del Rey. Barcelona obviously coming off the Champions League semi-final defeat midweek where Inter Milan did a job on them at the San Siro. That was Wednesday evening. This game is Saturday afternoon in the 3:30 UK TV slot, which is a little bit earlier than it usually is, I think. Scott, what is the
Yeah.
bet for Barca Madrid?
So I'm going to back a foul for Federico Valverde first off, and that's priced at 1.8 with Bet365. To be honest, he's got very tame foul numbers overall, but I feel like this is a very different game. He's sort of, in my head, he's Mr. Madrid, isn't he? He's very much what they represent, and he's become sort of that type of player since the likes of Ramos has left. And he's made a foul in 4 of his last 5 matches versus Barcelona, so it's a really good price for something like that. I think you need to view these El Clasicos in isolation. And obviously, they met at the end of April in the Copa del Rey final, and he made 2 fouls in that game. They were both in normal time as well. So one looks very doable here. I think crucially in that Copa del Rey game, Camavinga was out, and Camavinga's out again. He sort of acts like the destroyer when he's in the team. He's the one who's putting himself about making the tackles, making even the fouls. So the one where the one in the last 5 where Valverde didn't actually make a foul was the Super Cup final back in January. So he was paired with Camavinga in midfield for that game, and Camavinga made 2 tackles, missed 5 tackles, made 4 fouls. So he was very much, the man who was busy without the ball. Valverde's still involved, but had a bit more license to get forward. But here, without Camavinga in the team, I think he's sort of the one that's going to have to tuck in and deal with Yamal a little bit, because obviously Yamal likes to cut inside on his. So yeah, it'll be quite an interesting one. If he does end up on the other side of midfield, he could be dealing with Rafinha, but it's not really. There's not a lot of difference there, is there?
Okay, so where do you reckon he's going to be starting? Is he going to be starting centre mid? Because he's one of those players, isn't he? Like he can probably play anywhere. Get shoehorned to right back, shoehorned to left back. Do we need him in centre mid for this bet to go ahead, or are you just happy wherever he is?
If he was right back, you could arguably say it's better because it's sort of an alien position to him. But I think he's going to start in centre midfield. Everywhere's got him as a centre midfielder. So just the fact that the both wingers like to cut in for Barcelona, it should be enough to bring him into the game. And as I say, he generally does make fouls against Barcelona anyway. Barcelona are relentless. So yeah, I think it's probably a decent bet to look at anyway.
Okay, and obviously against Barca as well, they do a lot of their work in transition on the counter, don't they? So a lot of bodies running towards that Real Madrid midfield where Valverde is likely to be. So to get one foul, 1.8, seems like a big price, no?
Yeah. When you look at his recent games, he hasn't made one in his last 5. But as I say, Real Madrid don't face teams like Barcelona often, do they? So it's and that's the last 5 league games. I didn't check the Champions League actually, but just the fact that this is such a big game, it's effectively a cup final of sorts, isn't it? For Real Madrid, they have to win to have any chance of winning La Liga. So yeah, so it's an interesting one.
Exactly, like their last two games, Celta Vigo, Getafe, like, that Real Madrid midfield is not going to come under the same kind of pressure, obviously, as when facing Barcelona. So, okay, Valverde, one foul, 1.8. That's for 1 unit. And what is your other bet in the game? We're going for a bit of a bigger price.
Yeah, we needed a headline bet, so we're going to go for Valverde. Again, we've expected to be involved, so we're going to back him to make 2 fouls, 2 tackles, and over 3.5 offsides for Real Madrid. There's not a lot more to add to Valverde here, except that I just think he'll be busy. He made 2 fouls and 2 tackles in normal time of the Copa del Rey final. Same personnel, so let's hopefully he can make that again. So we might as well touch on the offsides. Over 3.5 offsides for Real Madrid. Barcelona are forcing an extraordinary amount of offsides this season. I'm sure it's something we've covered loads, and
Can imagine. Yeah.
it'll continue. It'll continue. They play with a really high line. The lowest PPDA, passes allowed per defensive action, in Europe's top 5 leagues. They're only team that have 7 below that metric. So they're forcing 4.82 offsides per game in La Liga as a result. Second is Osasuna with 2.71. So, we're talking almost half there. This is another funny stat. Real Madrid have been caught offside 20 times against Barcelona this season in 3 games, including the extra time of the final. 20 offsides in 3 games versus Barcelona. Admittedly, this offside line didn't win in one of the meetings, but it's hammered in the other 2. And I think
that's obscene. 20 offsides.
20 offsides, and then for under 3.5 to land in one of those games is incredible. It just seems like a good bet.
What's the offside line here?
It's 4.5 if you want to go over evens. I think 3.5 is about 1.6, high 1.5. So I would say the line is 4.5 at the moment, and yeah, it's understandable, to be honest.
Yeah.
Inter were offside 7 times in normal time in the week. So
yeah, that makes sense.
You can't really argue this. It's extraordinarily high, but yeah, with Mbappe and Vinicius, they're the type of players that do like to shift in behind as well.
Mm-hmm. No, that makes sense. Barca 1.90 to win this game. Real Madrid at 3.20. The goal line, rightfully under or over 3.5. The most recent 16 head-to-head meetings have produced more than 3 goals, which is some streak, and that just goes to show what kind of game we've probably got on our hands here. So, yeah, offsides, fouls, tackles, cards, maybe. Like we mentioned, both playing on the counter and in transition. So, should be a lot of action. If you were pushed, where would you go on the main markets away from the props?
Barcelona are much better, but this feels like Carlo Ancelotti's last stand. I think it's pretty much accepted. He's going to leave in the summer. The talk is Xabi Alonso's already agreed to take the job, isn't it? And this morning, so sort of the talk coming out. Okay, if Real can win in, the gap will still be 1 point. Barcelona tired legs after the Champions League, maybe. So to be honest with you, in terms of value, I'd probably back Madrid here. I just think they could get the job done.
Have to win, don't they?
They have to win.
Nothing else will do.
And they were moments away, and they could have won the Copa del Rey final as well, couldn't they? Let's be honest. I know Barca did deserve their victory, but Real have the quality. Could be some tired legs here, and Real absolutely have to win.
Yeah, I mean they have to win. Barca are 4 points ahead. Plus, if they don't win, they're going to have a better head-to-head as well.
Yeah, it's literally title over for.
So it's do or
Real.
die. So for like we see it a lot, don't we, at this stage of the season, where teams that need to win are often priced like ridiculously short. And I know both of these teams need to win in this scenario, but well, actually that's not true. Barca would gladly take a point, I think. So that makes that plus 0.25 Asian line on Real Madrid. It looks okay, but again, like I just don't like backing against Barcelona non-stop. But Barcelona at home at the minute, I know they play midweek, etc. But yeah, that's a bit scary because they are so good going forward.
It's a bold call. There is a bold call. It's probably on vibes, and maybe I think
I agree.
Real,
I do agree. It's just a bit uneasy, isn't it, right now, backing against that Barca front line. But I do agree in terms of value. That's probably where I'd go as well.
Yeah, that's worth saying. We'll have 0.1 units on the 15.0 bet builder there for that game. The fouls and the offsides and the tackles.
Okay, very nice. Let's go on to our next game of the show. We're going to be looking in Serie A in Italy, Lazio versus Juventus, and looking at the table, Scott. Didn't quite realize how close it was up there in Serie A. So it looks like a huge game. Juventus in 4th, Roma in 5th, and Lazio in 6th. They're all on 63 points. Bologna just behind in 7th with just 1 point less than the 3 teams above them. So Lazio v Juve, huge game. What are you going for?
I'm going for over 1.5 tackles and over 0.5 fouls for both Manuel Locatelli and Kefren Turam. So they're both centre midfielders, and we're backing them to be involved here. The thinking behind this one is it started a few weeks ago, actually, just before Igor Tudor took over. I was speaking to our colleague Daniele Fisichella, and he told me about how Tudor's teams will play, how he likes to high press, and there'll be a lot of man-for-man marking. And it's right true. The tackle numbers have been flying since he joined. An average of 17.67 with him in charge, and that's above the average of 16 for the whole season. Manuel Locatelli has been the main man for that. So if you're looking for a single, then he would be the one. Tackles and fouls are certainly his bag. He's made at least a foul in 5 of the, not actually all 6 games under Tudor. And he's made 3 tackles or more in all 6 games under Tudor as well. So heavily involved, an average of 4 tackles per game under the new manager. So he would be the single go-to, and you can get a decent price there as well. But I've gone for the bet builder. I don't want to overstate the show. And Kefren Turam's numbers are also very, very impressive. He's made 2 tackles in 5 of his 6 games under Tudor. The exception was last week, where he made 5 fouls. So he was still involved. He just couldn't time any of his tackles correctly and ended up making 5 fouls. And he's made a foul, at least 1 foul, in 5 of the 6 games under Tudor. So to get the bet builder at 5.0, that's very, very appealing, given how important the game is. Obviously, Lazio are a good team in their own right. They've got the likes of Zaccagni who force fouls and shift into that central area from wide areas. And it just seems like, given the magnitude of the game and how involved these 2 midfield players are under Tudor, it looks a great bet.
Yeah, I like it. It sounds like this might be a bit of a scrap. Juventus under Igor Tudor rarely losing games of football. Juve still, like they were under Thiago Motta, I don't know if it's a kind of hangover from his reign, but they're still overseeing a lot of low-scoring draws. But they've only lost twice in the league under Igor Tudor, so will they go to Lazio and lose the game? Maybe not, but for that to happen, they're probably going to be in for a fight. In terms of Igor Tudor's like approach and ideology, then is this something that it's worth keeping tabs on this season, next season at Juve? The tackles, the fouls, and maybe the cards as well. Have you as their like card numbers gone up or anything like that? Have you had a look at that?
Card numbers have been quite stagnant, maybe slightly increased. I was unsure, to be honest with you, over the short sample size on cards, because it's obviously down to the referees as well. If you get a good set of referees and a bad set of referees for those games. So something I haven't really tried to take advantage of, but tackles, definitely want to keep an eye on. I'm not sure whether Igor Tudor will be at Juventus next season. He's doing an okay job, obviously, but I'm sure they'll have their own ideas in the summer, and we'll see how that goes. But he's definitely one to watch wherever he goes. He was at Lazio last season, wasn't he? Towards the end of the season. So yeah, I'm sure he'll end up somewhere. So this is definitely one to keep an eye on. This is, according to Daniele, a trend that has followed him round at all his clubs. So yeah, definitely
worth keeping an eye on. Okay, so do you want to go through your bets for the show? Give us a little recap from Barca, Madrid, and then Lazio, Juventus.
Yep. Barcelona versus Real Madrid, over 0.5 fouls for Valverde. That's a 1.8, and we'll have a unit there. The next is a bet builder, over 1.5 fouls and over 1.5 tackles for Valverde, along with over 3.5 offsides for Real Madrid. That's at 15.0, and we're getting back 0.1 units on that. And then in Italy, Lazio versus Juventus, over 1.5 tackles and over 0.5 fouls for both Manuel Locatelli and Kefren Turam, and that's at 5.0, and we'll have a quarter of a unit on that one.
Perfect. Well, that's us done. Nice and quick. We'll be back again next week. In the meantime, if you are listening to the show, if you're watching the show and you're going to take any of these bets, then please do gamble responsibly. Scott, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks from me. We'll be back next week.